have people tuned in from all over the country, which I wasn't expecting. So that was really great. And yeah, I'm just gonna give it a few minutes. All right. So let's get started. All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. So we'll give this Q&A about 30 minutes. So we'll be wrapping up around 5 minutes after 8. We want to try to limit all of our questions to about 1 minute, give or take. That way Amir has time to answer your question and that we can get through as many questions as possible. If we don't get around to your question today, I will be saving everything from the chat and sending it to Amir afterwards so she can read through them. And so feel free to throw a shout out to or an amen at any time, so we can see what everyone has to say later. And I'm gonna hand it over to Casey in a second to just give a little bit of an overview about what Made in Durham is, what we do, and a little bit more about the programs that the participants in the video benefited from. But before I do that, I just wanted to say thank you, everyone. I'm so happy that we were able to do this. I'm thrilled that we had such a great turnout, even if we had a little bit of technical issues. But when Amir first brought this project to us a couple months ago, we were planning on doing this in person. We were going to do this whole premiere in person. We were going to have refreshments and everything. We were going to do it on Duke campus. Obviously, with COVID-19, it didn't quite work out that way. But Amir decided she didn't want to wait, and honestly, I didn't either. So I was pretty excited that we were able to figure out a way to go through this all virtually and just go ahead and do it this way. I actually think it turned out pretty well since we had people who were able to attend from all over the country. So that was really exciting. So yeah, I'm going to hand it over to Casey to give a little overview about Made in Durham. Casey?
Thanks, Lindsay. I appreciate it. Hey, everybody. I'm Casey Steinbacher. I am, hey, Leslie, hi. I am the Executive Director of Made in Durham. And I am super excited that so many of you had the opportunity to watch the video tonight. And if you did not, if you got kicked off, please, the link will be back up. You'll be able to watch it in its full. I have seen it 6 times now, and I still had to bring my tissues to the table because I knew my face would be a mess when I was done. I love every bit of these stories. For those of you that aren't aware of what Made in Durham is, we just wanted to take a real quick second, and kind of explain what we are. We're a collaborative organization that really tries to promote and connect business, nonprofit, educators, government, all those different sectors in support of a singular goal for our youth. We're really committed to ensuring that the Durham youth are prepared and connected to careers in Durham that will provide a more prosperous life for them and for their families. And our way to do that, our goal was simple. We believe that all Durham youth should obtain a post-secondary credential and begin a rewarding career by the age of 25. Now, y'all know that there's no easy path, no perfect way to make all that happen, that's for sure. It takes a village, and as Amir so aptly put, it takes a lot of different pathways to get you there. The stories you just heard as part of the presentation were from students on one of those pathways. They participated in one of our initiatives called the Durham Futures Program. It's a Futures Program is a 3-year pilot program designed to really kind of align and bolster the efforts of 4 organizations that provide educational programs for youth that have dropped out of school. And the collaborative began around 2017, is actually getting ready to end this June. The partners that are actually in that collaborative include the Durham Literacy Center and Achievement Academy, who since this collaborative started have actually merged their efforts together. It also includes a Durham Technical Community College Gateway to College program and the Durham Public Schools Performance Learning Center program, along with a lot of support organizations in the community that help those 4 organizations and their youth. with funding by the Oak Foundation. That's who actually underwrote and promoted this pilot program. Made in Durham was really able to provide additional services to their efforts, their existing efforts in the areas of outreach and engagement, bringing kids into their programs, and college and career services, really helping with pushing them beyond just the high school credential. And as I kind of just wanted to give you a little peek as we wind this program down. I can tell you that we, through this program, in this 3 years, will have engaged well over 350 youth that were disconnected, out of school, dropped out of school. And we're actually able to enroll and place 175 of them back into some of these educational programs. Over 500 of those students were enrolled in programs through Made in Durham that allowed them to engage in college and career planning services. And 70% of the kids that got those programs and participated in those programs actually completed their college applications. So we're extremely proud of these youth, of the ones you saw in the video and all the youth. And we're extremely proud of the organizations that actually serve them. And what you've just witnessed are some really incredible individual stories about those organizations and of those kids. But it really illustrates, it really does take a partnership, but once we're all there and once we're behind them, they can indeed find their own pathway to success. I just want to say in closing, thank you publicly to the Oak Foundation. This simply would not have been possible without them. They underwrote the vast majority of the program, but our other funders also contributed. The City of Durham, Durham County, Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, United Way of the Greater Triangle, Duke Energy, and a lot of other corporate partners. They all make this happen for these youth in Durham, and we're very proud of all of them. So with that, I think it's time to turn it over to the real star of tonight, and that's Amir Williams, to hear all about the making of this great journey and this fabulous presentation that we all love. So, Lindsay, I'll turn it back over to you so we can all hear from Amir.
Yeah, I'm just gonna toss it right back over to Amir. Go ahead and tell us a little bit, just an overview about this project, how it came to you, and yeah, how you decided to do it, how you got started with it.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for just being here. It's really wonderful to see so many supporters from the Duke and Durham community and the West Coast as well, and honestly, all over. I'll say that one of the upsides of a canceled exhibition is that now there are truly no limits to audience reach, and we can have people from everywhere tuning in to take part in this exchange. So, as you heard at the beginning of the live stream, my original connection with Made in Durham happened when I was a senior at Duke. I was working as a policy intern and was mainly embedded within the Durham Futures work. And at the same time, I was finishing up my certificate in documentary studies and just exploring a lot of audio documentary in my capstone class. And as I reached the end of the year, I sort of had this enlightenment moment where everything came together, and I built this idea for connecting with the students to enter into their lives for a little bit and learn their stories. So I proposed it to Rotcellis, and she gave me the green light and sort of sponsored the vision. Then I applied for the John Hope Franklin grant at the Center for Documentary Studies at Duke, and basically just went rolling from there. So that's the origin story and kind of the seed of the project. And it's just really great to finally see it blossoming out into the world. And I'm really, truly so happy to have you all here to witness and be a part of the conversation. I'll just say it was especially heartwarming to see people chiming in to the live chat from so many different places. So thank you everyone for just being present and for helping me honor the stories of these students. But I would love to turn it to the audience and have this just be like a free-flowing space. So let's get into questions if there are any. I would love to hear your reactions, start a discussion, whatever you want to share, it's open. So Lindsay, I'll send it to you.
Yeah. I think a good first question I see here from Patty Bowman is, at what point did the metaphor of the desired lines, the second path, come to you?
Yes, the project name. So Project names are always hard because you don't want the title to be reductive or diminishing to the work and the stories that are being shared. And sometimes project titles do that. And so you have to be really careful. I would be interested in hearing how other storytellers think about this, but for me, the name for the project Of My Own, The Second Path, which is inspired by the desire lines metaphor, was something that came kind of in like the final quarter after everything was already finished. And it's interesting also to think about the evolution of the name, because I did actually go into the project with an idea of what it would be called. Then I immediately scrapped it once the interview started. So originally the project was going to be called Second Chances. But as I heard about Crystal, Antaeus, and Marquise's journey, I didn't feel like it could be defined accurately as being a second chance, just because the initial chance or the initial experience wasn't one that was set up for them to be able to succeed based on the barriers that they faced. They just really needed like an alternative and something that would uniquely meet their circumstance. So like I said, I scrapped that name, and the project was nameless for a good while. Then one day I was having a conversation with my mom, who is somewhere in the call here if you scroll through the screens. But the concept of desire lines or the desire path came up, and I don't really remember exactly what we were talking about, but there was definitely an immediate connection there. So as explained in the intro, a desire path is basically an unpaved path that kind of like veers off from what was originally designed in order to meet the needs of the traveler. So I felt like it was a perfect symbol for what these students were able to do. They found a second path. So the title of the project is Of My Own, The Second Path. And it represents the path of their own, also the village that they had of their own that was filled with incredibly supportive people, like their teachers, their families, and Ratzelis. And lastly, just like this story as being one that they have ownership over as well. So that's how the name came to be and how the metaphor was sort of like woven into that.
That's really awesome. I liked this question too. So how did this project change your view of Durham community as a whole?
That's a really good question. So I think it impacted my view of the Durham community mainly from the lens of education. So the students sort of like came, offered their stories, and completely revolutionized the ways that I was thinking about all of this, the ways that I was thinking about who public education is set up for, who it's meant to serve, etc. And so honestly, like making the project was a blast. I mean, as you could see, the students were also wonderful and great to be around. So that was by far the highlight, connecting with them and getting to learn about their rhythm of life in Durham and the places that they frequent and where they hang out and all of that stuff, especially as a Duke student who's often like just cloistered on campus and doesn't really get out much. And I mean, I think like my service learning courses, like from Professor Rigsby and Professor Malone, who are here today, for kind of helping me get out into the community and serve within the public school system. But yeah, I think like after I graduated, I was just in this place where I hadn't yet started working in the real world and was able to give the project my undistracted and undivided attention, which made it really enjoyable and fruitful because I could just sink my heels in deep and absorb the stories from them. And I just loved like how distinct the students' personalities were and how many dimensions their stories represented. And so I'll offer that like that's one thing that I learned was the multidimensional nature of the people who make up the Durham community. And so I think the first thing I observed as I was chatting with them was like their complexity. So basically like outside of support from the programs and their ambition, there really weren't that many similarities in the background to their stories. And I think that just like challenges our notions of policy and education and what defines equitable education. And I think sometimes we may think that one size fits all, or that like the one size should fit all if the person were to work hard enough. But no, I feel like I learned from this that we need to hear the student stories and peel back the layers and ask questions and approach classroom design as if it were to actually serve the people rather than the systems that have been so long-standing. Because if we were really designing for the students, we would ask those questions and hear more stories, because they are dynamic and always changing. Whereas the systems and the frameworks that they operate under are stagnant. And you know, maybe we can put a pin in on that one and like continue the conversation later. But I'm really grateful to the students for demonstrating that truth and the power of storytelling in that. And so through them, I was able to learn so much about education, particularly in Durham, but I think just like the power of storytelling as well.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. That definitely stuck out to me with the stories, is how different they are, how, you know, each of these experiences was so different. So I have a little bit more of kind of like a more technical question, I guess. So the mediums that you used, you know, you did, you used photography, you used audio. What inspired you to use those mediums?
Yeah, so first want to say hi to Simone. I know that question was from you because I saw the chat. Good to see you. So the project does represent a double medium, but I think the entirety of it is actually grounded in the audio itself. I just feel like the voices of the students are really what drive the piece forward and allow it to be compelling, in my opinion. That's like the power of audio documentary. It sort of like transcends space in that way. And I also think the audio documentary is like the most open-ended and unrestricted documentary medium in a lot of ways, mainly because like the audience is able to kind of take a step back and paint the picture in their mind of what the subject is describing. And so like in that, the listener then becomes participant in the story that the subject is sharing. And I'll also say that like I chose to lead with audio as I was making the project because I knew it would help me kind of garner a deeper level of vulnerability. So typically it's easier to get someone to feel more comfortable in front of a mic on the table rather than a lens right in front of their face. So I use that to sort of facilitate more freedom in sharing and like exchanging with the students. And then once the audio interviews were completely finished, that's when I met the students for the photographs and we took the portraits. And I think as I was photographing, which I have a little bit less experience with, I wanted it to be an act of mutual engagement, which is something that I was able to kind of learn in my documentary studies classes. Like, what does it mean to engage with your subject and give them power over their own story? And so it was really grounded in choice and agency and allowing them to help me direct where they wanted to stand, where they wanted to like position themselves in the light, etc. So they were the directors, honestly, of that piece of the project. And then also just wanted to give them ability to be in charge of like their overall own representation, which I think in a lot of ways speaks to the name of the project, which is Of My Own.
Awesome. So kind of on that note, with the pictures that you had, so Benjamin Grant asks, how or why did you pick the specific quotes that you wrote on the photos?
Ben, hi. Thank you so much for being here and for your service in the College Corps program. So happy to see you. I would say for that answer, I don't know if there was really rhyme or reason. Sorry if that's unsatisfying, but I kind of just like listened to my heart when I was listening through the audio. Whatever stood out to me, whatever was most salient, I paid attention to like the pacing of the student's voice. And when they slowed down, when they maybe like choked up a little bit, some of them asked me to edit that out. So you may not have like heard the actual tears, but they did come in some moments. And so I tried to center it around those times so that the photo could represent sort of what I felt like was the most impactful shares from the students, particularly from their perspective. Yeah.
Awesome. So with your editing process, Amani Moody asks, can you discuss your editing process and how you created a cohesive storyline between Crystal and Antaeus and Marquise?
Yes, great question, Amani. Thank you. So I would say that I had some practice doing this. Like I was sharing before, the capstone project that I did my senior year at Duke is sort of what catapulted me into this other project. And I was exploring audio documentary in a little bit more depth and was kind of like finding the power of it and how to get really creative with it. And so I did this other project under the realm of audio storytelling, and it's a piece I created called Finding Beauty. I think two of the people who participated in it are here, Sasha and Savannah. But basically, it's based on the writing of Bell Hooks, where she writes about how images have played a factor in shaping the cultural history of Black women and how we view ourselves. So I sat down with 4 women for audio interviews. 2 of them were Duke students. 2 of them are women over the age of 70 to kind of like speak and share how their self-image was established and how it has evolved over the years as a result of images that have like come into their worlds. And so through that project, I had experience with editing. I downloaded Hindenburg, which is this like podcaster software that was super clunky and hard to figure out in the beginning, but I watched a lot of YouTube videos and that was helpful. And so in terms of like actually stringing them together, one thing I learned is you try to let the audio stand on its own. And so a lot of that means like cutting it the right way or like lacing the right music in between it. During the showcase today, we didn't have music just for the sake of time, but I did use that to kind of present it and cater it in a way that allowed the students to stand on their own and say like, this is my story and it doesn't have to be aggregated or attached to this other person, but like I am my own person. And so those are kind of the things that crossed my mind, but I would definitely say that my capstone project is what allowed me to even have the technicality to be able to approach the Of My Own project.
Awesome. And I do want to go back. So Adriana Williams asks, you mentioned that the name Second Chances as a documentary title wouldn't define the student stories well. So what would you say to anyone in the Durham community that may define or consider Made in Durham's programs as second chance to their students?
Yeah, great question, Adriana. Thank you. I would just add to what I said before that it's important to understand that public schooling may not be for everyone because there are unique challenges and structures and barriers that are in the pathways of these people who are like trying to make it work. And so sometimes dropping out or leaving high school early is not a choice. It's simply what you have to do to take care of your family, to make sure your grandmother is healthy, like with what Marquise did. And so there are a confluence of events and factors and barriers and structures that are sometimes at play. And so I would just say, think beyond what you see and try to consider what may be underlying someone's story, underlying someone's background, and ask questions and try to like collect more stories. I think storytelling is the best way to kind of like redefine this narrative that we've taken to be true. And so that's what I would offer for that question.
That's great. So we're at 8 o'clock now, but I'm okay with staying for another few minutes, you know, if everyone else is, if you are as well, Amir, because I feel like we just, you know, kind of got started. How do you feel about taking a few more questions, Amir?
Totally good, but would love people to feel empowered to drop off if you're feeling zoomed out.
Yes,
it's hard
of course.
times.
Yeah, this is we've all been on Zoom a lot lately, but I think this is a good discussion, so I don't want to cut it off too soon. So one question, Eliza asks, what impact did this have on you as an artist and NC local?
Yeah, So first thing, I don't know if I ever shared, but I'm actually in North Carolina right now, normally stationed in San Francisco, but came home to just be with my family, to shelter in place. And so it was really special, honestly, to like be in the atmosphere of North Carolina as I was like putting the final touches on the project and reflecting. And I just feel like my physical space allowed me to really feel the gravity of the student stories, really connected to the student stories, and like brought back to that summer when I was collecting everything that they shared. And so I'll say that. And then the second part of the question was, how did this impact me as an artist, I believe? I feel like I just learned to honestly lean into artist community more, and I was able to find how much that fuels me. So Eliza, it's hilarious that you asked this question, because I would attribute like my artist community to you mainly, and just us being able to build off of one another and share ideas and feel encouraged and supported. And so, yeah, I mean, this project like opened my eyes to the power of a village, and I've been able to see that in my own life and my own experiences. And I think that that's impacted me as an artist as well.
Awesome. So I did see this one. I'm trying to think where it was, but we did have a question about how, you know, COVID-19 maybe affected some of this. Obviously, we're doing this virtually now, but whenever you were maybe following up with some students, how has this impacted, you know, this project and in your work as an artist?
Yeah, so I'll just say the circumstances that got us here are definitely things to mourn. There have also been a lot of positive byproducts of the shelter in place as it like relates to my creativity. In general, I felt challenged to kind of cultivate more stillness and quiet moments in my life, which just gives me more runway to like do the dreaming. And I think that I've channeled my creativity really well through that during this time. And the slowdown also have just been like praying more intentionally and feeling more connected to God, which helps me to like recognize beauty in the stories of other people, honestly. And so that's been huge. And there have been really hard moments as well, but my creativity has definitely been enhanced, I feel like. And I, again, am just so grateful that we were able to see the coming together of so many different geos and locations and homes of people. And so it's really special, like, and I don't feel like that would have been able to happen otherwise.
So I have another good one. I like this one. So how do you envision the message and the theme of this project is spread amongst the Durham community and beyond?
Yeah, that's so good. I would say first, like, thank you just for that desire to see the message continue. I think that's like what we want from this project. And so it's so great to have that question. And I can tell you that like the more you get involved and lean into these stories, like the more you'll want to, and the more you'll like desire sharing it out. I don't know like if Made in Durham has any specific ideas of like how this is going to be posted and evangelized throughout the community, but I do feel like the best way to be an ambassador is to just kind of like share the stories, start conversations, point people to them and the incredible work that's being done by Made in Durham and the partner programs. And I think just in the general realm of education, like what I hoped from this project was that we would be able to see that we need transformation within the classroom. But we also right now just have to be more open-minded to the second path. And I think that like starts with listening and starts with continuing to really lean into stories like these.
I think that's great. So any last words to share with the group, Amir? And then I think we might be wrapping it up.
I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but honestly, just have to end it with thank you. My heart is like overflowing with gratitude for everyone who showed up for these student stories. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect. I think when we first planned this, my goal was to have 50 people. And then on the live stream at one point, we had close to 100. And that was just above and beyond any of my expectations. So just thank you for rallying behind. Thank you for continuing to pour out support. Thank you, Crystal, for being here and for sharing your story with me, and for all of the other students, to the Duke community, Dean Stu, Chris Sims, my old professors who were in the room, and just like the advisors for the Made in Durham project, all of my besties I see, people from San Francisco, my Women of Wonder group, Delta, Sigma Theta, Lambda Omega, hello. So just, yeah, thank you for showing up and for offering support and just caring about this work. It really matters to me.
And we're going to continue to share these stories. Like I said before, if you kind of missed some of that stream, we will have it up on the same webpage. It's going to be on the same link on YouTube. And then we're also going to be sharing the audio as a separate piece and the images as a separate piece, because yeah, we want to continue this story, talking about these different pathways and how unique they can be. Because yeah, sharing the stories is what really gets people thinking about these alternative routes and how we help each other through communities. And yeah, so keep an eye out for everything, check out our website, check out all of our partners that are doing this amazing work. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And yeah. All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.